Hey everyone, it's Cole from A+ Power Sports. Today I'm going to do a walk around video on this machine and I'm going to give you guys a once over. So anyone that buys a machine from A+, we give them a once over on it so they kind of know the maintenance schedule, what kind of fuel to use, different things like that. So we're going to make a video and show you guys about your new machine. This unit is a 2024 Sportsman 570 with the Ride Command Edition, but this is going to pertain to Sportsman 450s and Sportsman 570s. And I always start with the break-in procedure. So 25 engine hours is the normal break-in procedure on these. At 25 engine hours, it comes back to the dealership for its first oil change and gets an inspection. Another thing with break-in is the first 50 miles is really breaking in our belt and our clutches, so we want to drive it nicely as much as we can. So in the first 50 miles, I try not to do excessive RPM ranges. I like to vary the throttle as much as we can so it cuts that belt and clutch as full range of motion through it. So we don't want to just stick the RPM just at 10 miles an hour and drive it for 50 miles. We want to give it its true experience of riding down trails, twisty, windy, lots of RPM ranges. The first two full tanks of fuel is break-in as well. So we're being nice to the engine. We're not letting it sit and idle for an extended period of time. That can be hard on our engine components that are tight fitting. So we want to do lots of different RPM ranges, drive it around normally, but don't get in the mud and water and see how fast it'll go right away. The next thing I want to talk about is the maintenance intervals on these Sportsmans. So if you're an excessive rider, this does not pertain to you, or an extreme rider we could call it, where this vehicle will be in a lot of mud, water, sand, extreme heat, or extreme cold. This is our normal Wisconsin ATV rider. Is 200 engine hours is oil change intervals for engine oil, front differential, and transmission fluid, or every 2,000 miles or once a year. Whichever comes first is what will change our fluids at. Down on our right footboard, we can see our little cover here with the oil symbol on it. We remove this and we're able to access our dipstick. This is a threaded dipstick, so we want to make sure that we fully unthread it, wipe it clean of the oil, thread it all the way back in, and then check it one more time to make sure that our oil is at the proper level. Always reference your service manual or owner's manual to check this. Next, I'm going to show you the most important maintenance item that is overlooked a lot of times, and it's underneath our seat. So we pull up on the rear and pull the back. So our air intake is coming in from right underneath the fuel cap right there, and our air box sits cleanly in here. But if we release these 6 tabs, we can open up our air box. We see our air filter sitting in there. Now, in dusty conditions, you're gonna have to change this quite often. It's hard to give you a true range of how long it will last because everyone's riding style is different. But be sure to inspect this if you've been in a lot of muddy conditions or wet trails. We don't wanna have water get on our paper filter. And definitely try and stick with the Polaris OEM factory filter. They are pretty foolproof on them. There's other brands out there that say they offer more horsepower. In all honesty, you're probably not going to get more power out of it, but stick with the Polaris one. It's going to keep the dust and the small fine particles out of your engine. The brakes on the new Sportsmans are all controlled by a left hand here, so this operates all 4 front and rear brakes at the same time. And if we want to lock it, we're on a steep hill or we're trying to start it, squeeze the handle and lock it into place. This allows it to not move forward while you're trying to run it or start it in the morning, and then to release it, squeeze it and let go and the brakes are released. If you're riding in a situation and you only want your rear brakes to be applied, your right hand foot can press down on the rear brake pedal and that will only operate the rear brakes. Filling up our machine with fuel, we're going to run at 87 with 10% ethanol in it. That's going to be for our normal average use. Now, in the wintertime in Wisconsin, it gets extremely cold, so we'll have to fill our machine up with the fuel designed for that temperature range. So in the wintertime, or when it gets into the colder months, we switch to a winter blended fuel, and that allows for different detergents to get into it so we don't have issues with water getting into our fuel system. So summertime, still run your 87, 10% ethanol, but in the winter when it gets cold, make sure you fill up with a fresh tank of winter blend, regular 87. To access the battery on the Sportsmans, the new models are underneath the front storage rack, and our battery sits up under here. So if we have to jump start it or anything, just open this up and we can jump it right up front. Polaris also offers a battery tender spot so we can have a maintainer on it. And through the cold winter months, if you're not using the Sportsman, and that's located up on the dash. Sportsmans have all 4 independent suspension on it, and they are adjustable. So in our toolkit that comes provided by Polaris, we have something called a spanner wrench, and you can see where you would hook onto this and you'd be able to twist this and turn it. And here's our little locking point. So it's on the softest setting from the factory, but if we're in extreme conditions and we're pulling heavy trailers and things like that, we need to beef up our shocks, we can just use our spanner wrench and crank those up. If your Sportsman comes equipped with a winch, I'll give you a quick tutorial on how to use it. If you're stuck out in a mud hole and you need to winch out to a tree but there's no one there to use the hand control, you can turn this little lever here to free spool and you can pull the winch out by hand. And then make sure when you're ready to use it, you lock it back into place, and then it operates as a normal winch with the winch control. We always want to keep our radiator clean, and Polaris makes it nice and easy to access, so we can pull down and pull this little panel out. We'll see our voltage regulator up on the side, and then here's our radiator. We need fresh, cool air going across this at all times. So if we're in a lot of cattails or like cottonwood trees or mud and it gets packed in there, just make sure you take this off and take a garden hose and clean it out until the water runs clear. It is an all-terrain vehicle, but water is not a terrain, so it's not a boat. So I try to recommend everyone not to go much above the tires with water if we're going through mud holes. Your air intake tubes are up here for the clutches. If you somehow did get water in there, if you look on the bottom, there's a little red drain plug. You would keep the engine running, take the red drain plug out, and let the engine run. It'll push the water out of there. Centrifugal driven clutches are worked off of friction, so if the belt has water on it, it's just going to slip on there. So get it out of the water onto dry land, pull the red drain plug, and let the engine idle so it can push that water out of there and dry out your clutches. I'm going to show you the basic hand controls from left to right. So over on the left handlebar, we have our headlight switches, so low and high beams. Our winch control is over here. The yellow button is our speedo and reverse override button. So on these machines, if you have it locked into 4-wheel drive and you go into reverse, it's going to unlock it from 4-wheel drive just for safety features. But if you need 4-wheel drive, you're stuck somewhere, make sure you press in on the yellow button, and when you're in reverse, it keeps it locked into 4x4. Our red kill switch, it can operate either direction, but it's essentially a dead man switch. So it's going to kill battery to the screen, the headlights, everything. So if you get up in the morning, you're like, man, my 4-wheeler is dead, you might have hit this switch. Just make sure you turn it to the run position, and hopefully you didn't drain the battery. Over on this side, we have our 12-volt plug-in. We can charge our phones, different things like that. This is that center one I was talking about with the battery maintainer, so we can plug it right into this and keep the battery on a tender. We have USB ports on this, being a ride command model, and obviously a key. We have key power on them, so once you turn the key on, your power steering turns on, headlights, taillights will work, and with the ride command. Now, the power steering is electronic, so it pulls a lot of battery juice out of it, so you have a 5-minute limit. So if you have the key on with the engine not running for 5 minutes, you're gonna have a little check engine light with the power steering guy going on. It just killed your power steering. To reset it, all you do is just turn the key off, turn it back on. It does that to save battery. When you go to start it, hand on the brake, squeeze it, and then turn the key, and it'll fire up. On the right-hand control, we have our 2-wheel drive and 4-wheel drive switch. You'll see it operate on the dash, and it'll change from 2-wheel drive to 4-wheel drive. So our shifter over on the right-hand side, we have 2 forward gears. So high gear is all the way forward, and then low gear is 1 back. Now, people always ask, when do I use which gear? High gear should be used on any time that you're trail riding this machine. For most uses, you're gonna be in high gear. But if we're operating at low speeds for an extended period of time, let's say we got a sprayer on the back of this and we're spraying weeds around a pasture, you're gonna wanna run it in low gear, and it just saves on the bout and clutches. Anytime you put a load on the engine, so loading it on the trailer, going through deep mud holes at slow speeds, you're gonna wanna run it in low gear. Other than that, high gear should be most of the time what you're in. All right, that's my once over on a Sportsman 450 and 570. I hope you guys learned something, and if you have any questions about it, make sure that you always reference your owner's manual for your specific machine. All right, if you guys want to see what we have in stock right now, check out aplusride.com. If you like this video, hit that like and subscribe button. If you have any questions on anything I talked about, make sure you leave a comment in the section below. And as always, thanks for watching.